Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Zach.
Hey there, did you want us hidden or you want us to be on camera?
No, I am allowing you all to start your video if you so choose. Okay, you should be able to now. And I see a phone call in. I see that might be Commissioner Love Wade. Okay. Hello, everyone. I know I'm guessing we'll keep it on webinar style this evening because I think we're going to have a larger group. But for everyone who is an attendee, please by all means use the chat as well as raising your hand, and we can call and let you in on video or by voice. And I'm going to drop in the chat a link to the agenda, and I'll also just copy and paste it in there. Let's see, I know Commissioner, and I apologize, Commissioner Ewert from 1B is going to be joining us tonight. So I'm promoting him to panelist. Okay. And here is a link to the agenda. Commissioner Lima Morales and Commissioner Brown. Good. So we should be able to join. Wonderful. Oop. Sorry, I
Brought up the wrong person.
Yeah, I did. Sorry,
They move on you.
Switched on me. It does. It did. Oh, that's my fault. Okay. Well, thank you all. I know like I said, we're expecting a larger group tonight, so I'm keeping it with the webinar format like we do our usual monthly meetings. I have dropped a link to the agenda in the chat. If you have any issues accessing it, please just raise your hand at any point, and we can bring you up. I know we had a request very briefly to begin the meeting with the NOI discussion because, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, but Commissioner Ewert from 1B, who is their chair of their transportation committee, is here to discuss the NOI with Commissioner Brown and has to jump off fairly soon. So I would just kick it off to you if you wouldn't mind discussing the NOI and what 1B is doing, and Commissioner Brown, what you're thinking of as well.
Thanks. I appreciate you inviting me to the meeting, and you got my last name right, Ewert. So I'm the chair of the Transportation Committee for ANC 1B, and at our last meeting on, hold on one moment. Last meeting on May 12th, we, Commissioner Brown attended and we were able to have a brief discussion about the NOI to remove parking, to extend the merging area, I guess would be the best way to describe, as cars go from Michigan Avenue on to Kenyon Street, and then also to remove parking on, I believe that is on the 400th block of can't remember exactly what street that is, but it's like the catty corner to that Kenyon and Michigan Avenue intersection. We were lucky enough that we had time before comments were due that we could postpone it, because we know that your ANC has done a lot of really good work on the Warder Street bike lane and working with DDOT, and your input would probably be more beneficial before we made any decisions, because of the NOI borders both of our ANCs. At our last meeting, we discussed general support for it, although there was some hesitation with providing more space for cars to potentially drive fast as they do merge onto Kenyon Street with what, at least in our anecdotal experience, is a fairly dangerous intersection. I know in my time as both a bicyclist and as a passenger in cars, that intersection can be a little squirrely. It's never fun to interact with. And one thing that we had begun discussing offline are other potential ways that we could amend that the proposal that would accomplish the same goal. And one thing that came up would be to I believe it's rather that's probably accurate. It's Columbia Road. Sorry about that. And I believe one potential solution would be to force the merging of lanes on the eastern side of Warder Street prior to Columbia Road. I'm not sure if that would make 100% logistical sense, but is a possibility that a couple of members of the committee had been exploring as well. I'm really interested to hear what you all have to say. I know you guys have been working pretty hard on this. So I appreciate you guys giving me the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Max, and thank you for joining us at our Transportation Committee meeting and giving us the opportunity to coordinate on the NOI. So Max just explained some of the changes that would occur, the proposed changes that DDOT is proposing for the 500 block of Columbia Road, and folks may know that block because it is on the intersection of Columbia Road and Warder Street. Pretty much if you are traveling west, the hospitals and coming from the hospital centers from Michigan Avenue, it would go directly into that intersection. And so what Max is explaining is that DDOT would basically increase the no standing, no parking restricted area by 25 feet in order to create some kind of additional space which would, narrow down that traffic. So 1B has been having these conversations, and this is and just correct me if I'm wrong. I forgot the commissioner for that particular single member district, Max.
It's Commissioner Delaney, but unfortunately he wasn't able to make it to the last committee meeting.
Right, and directly across the street is my single member district, which is ANC 1A10. And so for the 400 block of Columbia Road, that is a very narrow intersection. And we've talked to DDOT about this, but basically the NOI would propose the same changes. On that area, it would increase the existing no standing, no parking restricted area to narrow the roadway egress into Water Street. And folks may know that this is a particular intersection that has a crosswalk. So not only would it support the safety of pedestrians crossing out over that particular crosswalk, but it would also likely prevent cars from getting hit that are parked along that intersection. And so the initial request came from an individual who lives right at that 400 block, right in front of the sign, that has seen cars getting clipped, and he contacted the council member's office, which sparked the NOI. And I can also just share my screen very briefly so that folks know. Oh, you have, great. Do you have the NOI up?
I can pull it back
Okay.
up 1 second.
I did share the NOI with folks in the chat. And I see a question in the chat. That is not Kenyon Street. It is Columbia Road. That's a different, that is a different issue that we hope, Aaron could walk us through today, or at least mention it if it's not ready to share, if the proposed design concept isn't ready to share out. But this is a different proposal that DDOT has submitted through this NOI. What we're hoping is for that intersection to include some kind of measure, like a bump out or some kind of like a striped area with poles to go up so that folks aren't able to park there, because folks may just illegally park there and then get their car hit. And we've seen FedEx trucks and delivery trucks park there and completely block that intersection, and cars aren't able to travel north through Water Street. So yeah, those are just some additional points that I just wanted to raise so that folks could really understand what these changes are, and that we do have impacts to both ANC 1A and ANC 1B. The NOI is listed, has a comment period of July. I'm sorry, I'm getting my own self screwed up. There is a deadline to submit comments for this particular NOI on July the 14th. So feel free, for the community that's on the line, just, feel free to share your comments if you have any. But ANC 1A will be soliciting comments and working through the ANC to weigh in and coordinate with ANC 1B.
And Commissioner Brown, would you prefer that the ANC take action on this in July, since we're able to make that work?
Yes, I'd have to double check. It may actually be June, because I think the comment period may land on that particular date. So since we have our meeting in the evening, I want to make sure that we submit the comments on time. I also just want to share, this is something that I really think should improve. I don't know if DDOT has, an opportunity to weigh in on this, or if Cynthia Tercio is on the line. But we have, the residents that will be impacted to both sides of that street, and they did not receive a public notice. The public notices come to the ANC. So, I'm gonna do some outreach so that folks are aware, and that, they're aware of the NOI and can submit comments. I've shared it out through social media, but, some folks may not have access to social media or be on the same social media platforms as I am. So I just want to make sure that folks are aware. So this is the public process that we're using, but I'm also doing my outreach to help notify folks that are on that street.
I know we had a few hands raised. So folks, I'm going to allow you to talk. So we'll start with Brian and then Gordon. And then I see some questions come in the chat as well. So Brian, feel free to talk.
Yeah, I live in the 400 block of Kenyon Street. And I had 7 points I wanted to raise. A few of them are questions. It's number one, too many elderly people and handicapped people are affected by this bike lane in our block. We used to be able to park our cars in front of our houses, offload our groceries and things. Can't do that anymore. It's a struggle.
Brian, I'm just going to stop you right there. Is this regarding the proposed Kenyon bike lane?
Yeah,
Or is this focused on the NOI that we're discussing?
I thought that was the same thing. I thought it was one and the same.
No, these are separate issues. So
Okay.
I'll make sure to bring you back up for that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Next, going to Gordon. You should be able to speak.
Hey, everybody. I just wanted to speak in favor of this proposal. So I'm an Edgewood resident, and I often come up and down Warder as a cyclist and a runner. I'm often coming south or down the hill on Warder, so I cross the right now it's not fully striped out crosswalk there where cars are coming west off of Columbia, and partially because of that parking space, the oncoming cars going westbound are often not yielding to me as I come down that hill. So it's definitely that empty space area where Michigan and Columbia, cars from both of those streets can sort of merge into one and then merge up onto Warder going north. That's one of the scarier areas for pedestrians. And so I definitely support these changes just to add some more visibility as people are coming, because that's traffic coming off of Michigan there also can be going pretty fast. And just so yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. And sorry, I'm going back and forth with these. We have Eric, whose hand is raised, so I'm going to allow you to speak. Thank you.
Yeah, I first just want to clarify. We're talking about the bike lane issue at Warder. Am I correct? I kind of was in and out a bit. So.
No. Right now we are discussing the NOI regarding pedestrian safety and changes to parking at Michigan Columbia Warder.
Oh, okay.
So I'm happy to pull you back up at that time.
Yeah, I have a statement to read on behalf of Dan Hayes. Thank you.
Okay. I saw one written comment. I didn't know if anyone wanted to address from Emily in the chat, Rashida or sorry, Commissioner Brown or Commissioner Ewert. Is there any opportunity to further improve this intersection?
Well, if you're talking about the 400 block of Columbia Road and the intersection of Warder, I just proposed some kind of measure that could be included within that like 25%, 25 feet space that DDOT is creating there. And that would include some form of a bump out or just the stripes that you can create with the poles. And I'm sorry if I'm not, stating what the correct term is for that particular design, but I'm trying to think of some areas that are similar, but it would just basically fill up that space so that no one could park there and that folks could kind of travel safely up to Warder Street heading north.
Sorry, and where's Commissioner Love Wade? Was that you on the line? Were you able to speak now? Okay, never mind.
And just to Emily's point, and I'm glad that Max is here because he also mentioned, that ANC 1B for the 500 block of Columbia Road was thinking about adding some kind of measure to that particular space so that folks can turn left onto well, it would come from Michigan if you're coming from that direction, but to travel left onto Columbia Road in particular, since a lot of cars get clipped on that particular side, since it's so close to the sidewalk, to the curb at the 500 block of Columbia Road.
And Commissioner, did you have text from ANC 1B that you had already drafted that you'd be able to share with us for review?
Unfortunately, no, we have not drafted any language in support or to comment on this. But I'd be happy to coordinate with you all on that. I do think that a collective voice probably has more weight than each of us at it from angles. And to add to what Commissioner Brown mentioned, one other thing that we explored was maybe the potential of if they do remove 25 feet of additional space, maybe it could be used for some type of like a portion of it could be used for like a micro mobility corral or something, or places for people to lock their bikes, something like that, to kind of make the space more visible, but also still productive, if that makes sense. Those are just some of the ideas that we were.
Then I'm not sure if you all are monitoring the chat, but we had from Jennifer Cooper. So is that a yes, that the slip lane can be eliminated? I hear a lot about protecting cars and not much about protecting cyclists and pedestrians. I would say off the bat, I don't know if that's even in the scope of the NOI. I always defer to you for this portion of the commission, because your neighborhoods best and how transportation works. So I will obviously work with you both.
And Commissioner Clock mentioned the flex post, which I was describing earlier. And I think someone also suggested parking coral. So we can think of a lot of options, and I can include my email in the chat for folks if you want to share out your recommendations.
If I may chime in, I would just say I'd like to have more of a discussion following this on flex posts, if that's going to be the option, because I have a love-hate relationship with them. They make a lot of sense, but they don't seem to stay in place very long, and they seem to do nothing but be strewn about the street because people don't respect them with their cars, and the cars weigh a little bit more than the flex post, so the flex post loses. So I just want to think if that's a direction that people want to go, is it possible to get something that's more sustainable? Because I don't want to protect pedestrians and cyclists for like 3 days and then have the posts just littered everywhere.
And I don't know, Aaron, I know this probably isn't your division, but if you have any expertise on this. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that I'm not working on this particular project, and I was not even actually aware of this NOI, so I'm not really prepared to address it, nor am I prepared to address sort of the broader issues with flex posts as a tool in the DDOT toolbox at this time.
Okay, so Commissioner Brown, I'm assuming we'll have folks coordinate directly with you. And Tim is suggesting wheel stops like mini curb. Yeah. So we will follow up with you, follow up with the comments that you're receiving from neighbors and residents as well. And we'll make sure to discuss this at our committee of the whole, as well as at our June meeting, and coordinate with 1B.
And I think that's a good idea. And for folks who want to marinate on this for like a week or so, and attend the 1B Transportation Committee meeting, that will be on June 8th at 7 p.m. And you can find that at the ANC 1B website, and I'll post that in the comments as well.
Okay, I'm getting a phone call and I am guessing it's going to be Commissioner Love Wade. So, Aaron, would you mind taking over at this point? Thank you.
Certainly, yeah. Well, good evening, folks. Thank you for having me. My name is Aaron Goldbeck. I'm a planner at DDOT. I work on bicycle and pedestrian projects. What I have for you this evening is plans for the Warder Street protected bike lane and a concept plan for an extension of the Kenyon Street protected bike lane. And I think we're going to do Warder first. Those plans are much further along and are at a higher level of detail. We are very interested to hear what you think about them. And these plans, we discussed sort of in their concept phase several months ago now. I'm blanking on the exact date, forgive me. And this was all coming out of the 2016 Crosstown Transportation Study. And there was a few public meetings that followed up from that until about 2018. Then we had a little bit of radio silence where we figured out how we were going to fund this project. And then we came back to you in 2019 with the first phase of the Crosstown project on Irving Street. So this is the second phase of that whole effort. And what we are doing is connecting the existing protected bike lane on Kenyon Street. We're connecting it all the way north up to New Hampshire Avenue. So the entire length of this project is 0.85 miles. And I am going to share my screen and show you the plans. And I believe when I do this, I can't really see the chat. So if there are comments or questions in the chat, please do let me know. I'm going to zoom it in here a little bit. Is that more or less visible for everybody?
Not able to see it, Aaron.
Oh, I have to
There
actually
you
hit the
Oh, there we
button.
go.
Yes, hitting
There
the
you go.
share button helps a lot. Great, good. All right, so first thing here is this, the orientation of this plan is we've got north to the right side of the screen, south is to the left. A little bit confusing, west at the top of the screen, obviously. So this is the southernmost part of the protected bike lane. This is where it's going to begin, picking up from the bike lane that comes around the reservoir and then comes up here, through that Hobart, Michigan area, and then up onto Warder, crosses over these ramps from Michigan. So this is just being done with paint at this time. We do think this is a sort of upgrade to the lane as it is right now. It is a realignment, a minor realignment. Any questions on this before I move us further north?
Well, I'll throw one in just because I'm looking at what's in the chat as well as the follow-up on the NOI discussion that we just had, since this is the same intersection. So I understand that it's just being done with paint, which you consider to be an upgrade with what's there now. But my question is, can you coordinate with that NOI, especially with that dangerous intersection there at Columbia and Warder, and see if there's a way to maybe have the two work together? Because clearly whatever the NOI achieves is going to likely impact this plan. And I would like to see something a little safer at that intersection than just paint.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very interested in following up on that NOI myself. And is there any particular suggestion or ask here?
I would just like to see us focus on this intersection in particular. It maybe as a breakout discussion, perhaps when this is a little further along. I know that there's a lot more proposal to go through tonight, but this really is a horrible intersection and just not safe. And it doesn't really matter if you're a pedestrian, a jogger, a cyclist, or even a car. It's just not a safe intersection. So maybe it's not part of this project per se, but since there is an NOI for this intersection, maybe between the two of them, we can see a real improvement on safety.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll look into that. And I guess I should say as a general caveat, I might not necessarily be able to answer every question that comes up or you know, address every comment in a satisfactory way, but anything that I can't speak confidently on, I'm going to take back to the team of folks who's working on these designs and follow up later. So just want to put that caveat out there. Anything else on the Warder, Columbia Road, Michigan Avenue, Hobart area?
Zach, we have some comments in the chat. I don't know if you want to share that.
Yeah, sorry, I was emailing Commissioner Love-Wade. We have Aaron. Are you at all able to see the chat?
Let me give it a shot.
If you click on participants while you're screen sharing, you should be able to see the chat. It'll be quicker than me reading them through.
Got it. Okay, here we are. All right, I'm just gonna scroll back up a little bit. Will the Park Place bike lane be discussed at all? That was from Sandy. Yeah, unfortunately, Sandy, I don't have the plans yet for Park Place, but those will be coming soon, hopefully next month. So stay tuned. We will do a second meeting on that, and it would also be a lot to do, I think, both in one meeting. But we will have an update on that in the next few weeks. Herman Gordon. Yeah, well, I'm not going to address the specifics as to why this is being done with paint and without like a raised barrier. But I will follow up on that and see if we can do it. I'm hearing that there's interest in doing it. So if we can do it, we'll let you know. And if we cannot do it for some reason, we will let you know why that is. But it is a very complicated intersection or series of intersections. Let's see. So a lot of comments in the chat that I'm just sort of reading past, but I get them. I hear you. One comment raises the question of bulb outs, which I don't believe are feasible here. Okay, I don't see any other questions, so I am going to keep moving. Yeah. But okay. please do let me know if you see anything I do not. Okay. So moving north here, we have protection in the form of precast concrete barriers in between the parking lane and the protected bike lane. So we've got a parking lane on the west side of the street on the top there, which is 7 feet 7 inches wide. We've got an 11-foot travel lane. We've got another 7-foot 7-inch parking lane on the east side of the street. We then have a 3-foot barrier area and a 5-foot bike lane running northbound along the east side of the road. The bike lane itself will not be painted except for where there are driveways, alleyways, or intersections. And then it will be striped through those conflict zones to keep everybody aware. So here we've got the Warder and Irving Street intersection. Any questions at this point?
Yeah, we have a few folks with their hands up. So I saw Commissioner Gold from ANC 1C has his hand up. So I'll allow him to talk. I see Brian's hand up. Brian, I know you had mentioned you have a litany of comments. So I think those are pretty broad. So I would say let's save those for the end of the presentation if possible, unless it's specific to something. So Commissioner Gold, raising it right now.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Aaron, I appreciate seeing this, and you don't need to go back one, but as I seem to recall, there is a leading bike light indicator when you're coming from Michigan onto Warder. And I was wondering if that would remain. And I was also wondering the status of various leading bike light indicators or pedestrian indicators at every street where the bike lane will be crossing, I guess, an eastbound lane. So for example, here at Irving, will the people on bikes be moving before the car traffic starts? Thanks for this presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's an excellent question. We are not proposing any changes to signal heads at this time. So all of those existing dedicated bike signals will remain. So the one that you mentioned, we're not going to be changing any of those. And as for the existing signal timing, we've actually not quite gotten to that point in the planning process where we're discussing specific signal timing and signal optimizations. That comes a bit later once we've sort of settled the physical changes that we're going to be making on the ground. That is an excellent question to raise at this time. In terms of cyclist pedestrians having a leading interval over car traffic, that is standard practice, and I believe is the current condition for most, if not all, of these intersections. So we would be maintaining that throughout the corridor. Now, if there is a feeling that the signal timings should change, that would be a great comment for me to get now. Like, this is the right time for us to hear that feedback. So, I encourage you, since there is such a volume of chat and questions coming in, perhaps if folks could send after this presentation thoughts to their commissioners, and then those could be passed over to me or sent to me directly. That would be excellent, because I think I'm seeing so much happening in the chat and so many questions coming in that I want to make sure that I'm getting all this down, and I'm taking my own notes here.
And I will be also copying and pasting the entire chat into a document for review as well.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, yes, so apologies if I miss anything, but yes, definitely please do flag if there are specific intersections or signals that need extra attention from us. This is the right time to do that. But I don't have any new or proposed changes to any signals to discuss today, because we're just not at that point in the planning process. So I hope that makes sense.
Aaron, this is a clarifying question. I saw it in the chat, but I just wanted you to make sure to raise it on this in this meeting. Is there any impact on parking? Will we lose parking on Water Street with this particular design?
Yes, there's going to be a slight reduction in the parking lane on Water Street, though we have not actually seen any of that in the plan so far. We'll be getting to it in a moment. In some cases, parking lanes are going to be reduced to accommodate new street trees. So all the parking lane reduction is actually not going to be on the bike lane side. It's going to be on the other side where we're adding in trees. So I will point those places out when we reach them. But that's a great question, and we'll get into that.
Aaron, I'm seeing a general theme of questions of, can you actually describe the barriers that are being set up here and the dimensions of this bike lane?
Yeah, this bike lane is pretty comparable to other protected bike lanes throughout the city. In terms of the barriers themselves, those are going to be very similar to what you see nearby on Irving Street and on Kenyon. Precast concrete in this case, which, each segment is like 3 to 5 feet long, about 1.5 feet wide, weighs about 900 pounds. So pretty substantial, affixed to the roadway with rebar and epoxy. So they really don't move. In terms of adding a more vertical element, we're still, I think, discussing that. In some of these designs, we do add flex posts or other reflective elements to make them more visible to folks in cars. We haven't quite gotten to that level of detail on these plans yet, but if people have thoughts on that, I welcome those at this time. And then the width of the lane is 5 feet, which is standard. So trying to think of a protected bike lane like this in this area. This is a one-way. It's like the Irving Street one, except that one's 2 ways, so it's wider, and this one is just 1 way, so it's a little narrower because it's only got the 1 lane of traffic. But visually and conceptually a very similar design.
Okay, and I saw a few other hands up, so I know Gordon had his hand up as well. So Gordon, raising. It looks muted. Okay, I will jump to Tatiana. Tatiana, you should be able to speak if you unmute.
Hi, everybody. So I had an original question. I saw that Max jumped off, but during his initial conversation in the NOI, I guess the question was ignored or missed in the chat. He kept mentioning Kenyon Street. I just want to confirm that the current notice of intent that DDOT has posted is at the intersection of Warder and Columbia. Is there expected to be another notice of intent for the Kenyon Warder intersection?
So we're gonna post a notice of intent for the entire Warder corridor. It hasn't been posted yet. I wanted to make sure that everybody saw this before we did the NOI so that we could accommodate feedback into the NOI. We hope to get the NOI for this out like in the next week or two, would be great. And the NOI for this project is going to be, you know, all of Warder starting down there at Hobart and going all the way up to New Hampshire. So it's going to be covering the whole project.
So it'd be specifically for Warder Street?
Yes, yes.
Got it. Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Gordon, I know you should be able to speak now.
Hey, thanks. Aaron, thank you for this. I really support the heck out of this project, but I just wanted to say how really disappointed I am with the section that extends below, I don't know what, below where the intersection we were just talking about, I guess. When you guys design these facilities, you always talk about building a protected, connected network. And it is extremely dangerous and scary once you, I think it's get above Harvard there, and the cycle track disappears and you have to go across probably 6 different merge or slip lanes. And so if you're planning on executing this project in the next 2 months with that NOI and starting in the southernmost section, I hope that you will work much closely on significant design changes, because I live in Edgewood where there's a missing connection between 8th Street and the current crosstown. And so like you guys keep leaving these big sections on roads where there's giant scary segments. And so I just, it's not reasonable to expect anybody but crazy asses like me to ride in those places. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you know, I hear you. It's beyond the scope of this project to be closing down travel lanes, eliminating on, you know, ramps and intersections and so on. This is a relatively low impact project. The only place where we're touching the curb is to add trees.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've been on Street Mix and I've looked at a lot of the same data you have. You absolutely have the space within the existing curb row without changing traffic operations to protect every single part of that connection. And so I just like you just added a bunch of conflict Kermit paint and called it a day. And so I just like that. Just speaking to me, like, and I know that you work on our behalf as much as you can and within a bunch of constraints, but that's just false. Like you're doing a bunch of changes within the curb road now, and it's 20 by 22 or whatever it ends up being is going to be meaningless if you just slop a bunch of green thermoplastic paint in sections like these.
Great. Other comments?
Aaron, I assume, and as Commissioner Bass also shared, this is something that we can work on with you more closely, because I know this is, also the first time we're seeing this intersection fleshed out. So everyone who is on here, please do contact your ANC commissioners. I'm dropping the line for our website here too. All of our emails are on this page. Someone is saying something. I'm seeing a comment from Eric about submitting Dan's statement. If you have a pre-made statement, Eric, let's save that, because I know we have many more slides to get through. And the same for Brian. If you already have pre-made statements, let's hold off on those until we can get through some more of the presentation, a little bit more of the explanation.
Okay, thanks everyone. All right, so we're gonna keep moving north. And this is the section we just looked at a moment ago. Going north one more block, we now see the Kenyon intersection here on the left side of the screen. And now we are seeing our tree pits that we're adding in. So we've got our first one here just north of the Kenyon Water Street intersection. So these are going to accommodate new street trees. And we've got 10 of these for this corridor, where there are no street trees currently for the, in the public space here. So we're very excited to be adding these. The design here of the parking and roadway and protected bike lane doesn't significantly change. So actually, I think what I'm going to do really fast is I'm going to switch to a different document where I've got the tree pit designs, because I had some questions on those at our previous meeting. So just bear with me for a moment. I'm just going to switch over to my street tree detail, which I have in one of these tabs. Too many tabs. Okay, here it is. I just want to take a moment to show you this. So can you folks see the tree pit designs?
Yes.
All right, great. Okay. So we've got a couple of different views here. So on the upper left, we've got sort of a top down where you can see the dimensions. So these are going to extend away from the sidewalk 6.5 feet into the roadway. They're going to be protected by a curb. They are also going to include a permeable sidewalk to also help with drainage here. So these are pretty typical of what we do when we add in new tree pits. I know that we've done a bunch of these in Trinidad and other neighborhoods. So you've probably seen these around the district. They're pretty unobtrusive, I think. And we should be able to get sufficient soil depth here to support actual real trees. We've got these spec'd for American sycamore. I believe that they do take requests. So if anybody does have strong preferences as to what kind of tree they would like, please do let us know and we'll do our best. And there had been questions at our first meeting as to whether these were going to be sort of the rain garden type designs, which are sort of a deeper, below grade. And these are not going to be like that. These are going to be totally level with the sidewalk. So there's going to be no fencing around them. There should be no tripping hazard. And there should be no tendency for anything to collect as sometimes happens in those rain gardens. So I just wanted to make it very clear what our design was here and how this was going to look. And we really think this is a great opportunity to add additional, shade to this area that doesn't have much, and to provide additional stormwater management, bioretention, which is a good thing to have. So I'm going to just pause here for a moment. Any questions about the tree pits and how they're designed? Anything we're seeing here?
One comment for fruit trees, and I know I made the joke about getting female ginkgos, but we are not advocating for that.
I mean, if that's what you want, we could.
No.
Yeah.
Cherry blossoms.
No to the ginkgos.
Cherry blossoms. That's a great idea.
But I would say, I mean, we can have a separate discussion about this because I know DDOT's always been very accommodating in the past when there's a request for a tree type, and it's also on the list as a designated street tree. That said, I think that the goal should be trees that provide more canopy and shade, because water is very hostile and hot in the summer, specifically because there aren't street trees. So I think that would be a significant benefit to the entire community.
Yeah, absolutely. And the American sycamore is sort of selected for that reason, for the canopy reason specifically. Okay, well, if there's nothing else on trees, I will switch back to the corridor plans. And yeah, and I appreciate the help with the chat, because there's a lot going on.
Yeah, Aaron, I know one topic I'm seeing is, can you please describe the intersections of Warder and Kenyon and the merger of Kenyon cycle track with Warder?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. Gotta get back to.
I'll go to a few of the hands raised before we move on.
Yeah, so unfortunately on this plan set, we're not actually showing the existing bike lane on Kenyon, which is a little frustrating because it does make it hard to see how that right-hand turn is going to be handled. So I apologize for that. I wish that we had shown that more clearly here, because it makes it more difficult to answer that question. But you know, we are going to have the same signal phases that we have now. So like the intersection operationally is going to be fairly similar to, I'd say very similar to the way it is now. Really the only difference is a slight change in the position of the existing bike lane on Warder, excuse me. So if there's changes we'd like to see there, you know, let me know. But I would say as a general rule, it is going to be fairly similar than the current condition. So I know that that's not a super satisfying answer, and I'm sorry that I can't show this more clearly here, but I will be coming back to discuss these plans in the future, I'm sure, and we will make sure that we show that more clearly.
Here, I'm raising Sarah to talk.
Oh, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Oh, okay. Hi. I'm so grateful to you for this this work. The bike lane's amazing, and I'm really excited about getting more tree cover. I wanted to know what was you said I think 10 trees would be added, and could you say between what blocks, and then also let us know how many parking spaces we're going to lose as a trade-off?
Absolutely. So the number of tree pits is 10. And they are all here between Kenyon and they go up to Princeton, right by the rec center. So they're all contained within that segment. Now, in terms of the exact parking loss, I unfortunately can't get too specific now because we haven't completely set in stone where all the trees are going to wind up. There is some ability to move them around. So if people have, we're going to look at all this together. And then if people have a strong preference, don't put the tree here, put it over there, that'll affect, the parking impact. I would say as a rule of thumb, it's fair to see each of the trees as roughly equaling one parking space. That's going to be imprecise, but I think that's going to sort of get you there in terms of the trade-offs in public space. But, if there are really strong feelings that we got the tree placement wrong, we do have some ability to move these around. It's not 100% because there are lights, overhead lights on the street that we got to be aware of, there are underground utilities that limit the depth of soil we can get, and we want to have a good depth of soil so we can have healthy trees. So we don't have like total carte blanche as to where these can go. But in terms of their size and precise location, this was our, this is where we think they should go, but we are happy to take a second look if we feel like there should be some changes here. So I hope that's a satisfying answer. This is all sort of still in process, and that's why I can't be like 100% precise on everything.
That's great, thank you. There also is a few spots where the sidewalk is a bit wider, including in front of the school. And I was wondering if you looked into whether you could put trees there without taking up parking.
Yeah, we did look at that, and the consensus was that any place that if we put them totally in the sidewalk, like in the street furniture zone, it would create a really constrained environment for anybody using a personal mobility device like a wheelchair. I think there's places we could do it without a ADA violation, but it would not. It would make a pretty narrow pedestrian environment even more challenging. So ultimately, we decided not to pursue that, which I hope makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm seeing a couple of questions in the chat that I'm going to try and run through real quick. So we talked about trees gained versus parking. And then there's another question here about how is the park plan sequenced with the water segment, which I think is a implementation question, like when are we going to build these things? We are hoping to build the water section either late this year or early next year. And then the park section is definitely going to be next year, and exactly when next year, I'm not 100% sure, but like hopefully in the spring. So that's when we're hoping to actually implement these projects. Though that is always, depends on weather and other factors outside of our control. Is there any plan for center line hardening at this intersection? Not sure which intersection that was in reference to, but no, we're not looking at any center line hardening on this corridor because of the one-ways and other factors. That's not a very safe treatment, if I understand the question correctly. And then there's a question here: would a Kenyan traveler use the crosswalk to head north on Warder? So that would be a bicyclist proceeding westbound on Kenyan. How would they use the crosswalk to hang that right onto Warder? That's certainly an option. You can also get into the Warder PVL, by sort of doing like you turn left and then turn around and head back up the other way. That makes sense. Or you can move over into the right-hand turn lane and take the right onto Warder. So there's sort of a few different options there in terms of making that northbound turn from Kenyon onto Warder. Which then somebody else was about further down. And the final question here is that it looks like some of the tree locations are in the no parking area close to the intersections. Yes, we are certainly trying to locate the trees to minimize the impact on the parking lane. This is Chip's question. I'm sorry, I'm moving through these quickly. Yeah, we did try to use the trees to what's called daylight the intersections. So this prevents illegal parking that like blocks the sightline to the intersection as much as possible. So we did try and take advantage of that so that we can sort of kill two birds with one stone with regard to the trees. So that's why you do see the intersection placement, is they actually have sort of a secondary effect of increasing pedestrian safety as people are queuing or crossing the intersections. So that explains why we have this sort of placement at intersections as opposed to the middle of blocks. So that is a great question. I should have mentioned that earlier. Anything else before we keep moving?
Aaron, I would say let's keep moving.
Okay.
Just because I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. It's already 8.
Oh yeah.
Because I know there's a lot more to see.
Yes, I talk too much. My apologies. All right, so we're going to keep going here. So now we're moving up Warder past Luray, where you can see we've actually got one of the trees sort of in the T intersection here. And then we've got another tree just north of Park Road. And the protected bike lane continues with basically the same design through here. Continuing north past Newton, we've got 2 more trees south of Newton, another one north of Newton. And north of there, we reach Princeton Place. These are our final 2 trees, north and south of this intersection. So that is all 10 at this point. And then we reach Quebec, and we reach Rock Creek Church Road. So we are now out of ANC 1A, but I will just quickly show you the rest of this, just so you know how far we're going here. So we're now at the point where Warder becomes 7th Street. The bike lane continues with the same orientation. It continues all the way up to when we reach New Hampshire Avenue, and this one gets split on the page, so it's a little bit confusing, but you're going to see the protected bike lane sort of switch with the turning lane there. And then, we've got this really long, challenging, geometrically challenging intersection where we try and get folks all the way across Shepherd and New Hampshire onto 7th north of New Hampshire. So if you have comments about this segment, I invite you to attend the ANC 4C meeting where I will be talking about this, which dates TBD.
Thank you for punting that off of us, Aaron.
You're welcome. So that intersection is no picnic. But going back south of Rock Creek Church Road, let's get final comments and questions on this before we move on to the other stuff I have for you today.
Aaron, I did want to flag one comment specifically about the tree aligned with the north sidewalk at Luray.
Yes. Go back there. Okay, here we are.
I'm not sure if you're able to see the question, but doing so effectively eliminates a crosswalk. Can it be moved south a few feet so that is between crosswalks?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's one where we've definitely been playing with the placement of, and I think I'm inclined to think that that is a good idea. Though I do want to say that I don't believe there is a crosswalk in the existing condition at Luray. I believe the only crosswalk is the one that we show now. In terms of adding crosswalks, that's something that we were not planning on doing as part of this project, because then we'd have to tear up the curb, we'd have to remove more parking and so on. So it is not eliminating an existing crosswalk, but I do think that the placement of this tree is sort of subject to some conversation internally, and this is one where I think we might see it move.
But Aaron, you are correct that there used to be 2 crosswalks here. They eliminated the second and moved it to the place where you have it now. So I'm doubtful that they're going to want to go back again, but we'll see.
Yeah, we had not been discussing adding it back. I actually wasn't aware that it was there in the first place. That I'm not sure when that was removed.
I also think that you may have an issue with a conflict with a street light, which I don't know if that was part of your decision process or if it's a genuine conflict, but you may want to double check on that too.
Yeah, that was part of the decision. So you can kind of see it in the plan. It's this sort of light gray little box with a circle in it, just to the left of where the tree is now. So because of the underground utilities that support the street light, if we move the tree box further south, it will limit the soil depth and limit the planting options. So there's going to be some trade-offs. So that's why it wound up where it is right now. But it's something we're still thinking about.
Will folks be able to see it with the tree there?
Yeah, the light, yes. It's one of the really tall sort of overhead street lights, and it goes well over the street. So yes, I think so.
Okay.
Great. And Aaron, I'm not sure if you're able to address any of the questions or comments in the chat, especially the one from Tim.
Okay. Just a moment. So Tim asks if we can be doing bulb outs in conjunction with the tree boxes at the intersections. That's an interesting, that's a good question. I think that there is a good opportunity here in the no parking areas on the approach to the crosswalks to be adding in some protection. And I hate to say this, but we would likely do that with flex posts. I think that the intent for this project is to do something that has a pretty limited amount of curb moving, you know, because when we start moving the curb, that it gets really expensive and it takes a lot longer. And we're trying to do this project like relatively quickly by DDOT standards, which I know by like normal human being standards, like still takes a million years. But for us, this is like a relatively quick and easy project to do. So doing a kind of a bulb out or protection treatment around intersections, I think it's something we're going to take a close look at in the next sort of round of design that we do here, but it'll likely be with flex posts and potentially curb stops. One thing I'm interested in, I do a lot of the corral work for bikes and scooters, is maybe we could be doing some sort of micro mobility corral in some of these no parking areas. I think that'd be pretty cool because I know I see a lot of people riding scooters through here, and it would give them a great place to put the scooters that is not on the sidewalk, which I don't like. I don't think anybody likes when there's a scooter in your way. So I think that would be a great way to both do sort of like a bulb out type thing, and also create space for scooters and so on. But in terms of doing a bulb out with like a poured concrete curb or granite curb, I think that is unfortunately probably not going to happen on this project. And I hope the reasons why make sense. Let's see if there's anything else.
Aaron, are you able to address lane widths along Warder in regards to speeding and safety as well?
Yeah, so an 11-foot lane width is what we recommend here. We tend to try to not go much more narrow than that. I think there was some concern on this corridor since it's so near the hospital complex that wider emergency vehicles tend to use this corridor quite often. I take it from the question that we want to see a more narrow travel lane. I will bring that up. That's not something I can give a firm yes or no to, but I appreciate that feedback and I will look into that.
Aaron, if I may ask a question, I know it's not really part of the discussion tonight, and it probably will be part of the discussion maybe with the updated Park Place, but just I think it's helpful. Is the plan still to make Park Road a one-way street with added parking on both sides versus just the one?
Yes, we are still planning on doing the one-way conversion. Unfortunately, and this is on Park Road, and unfortunately, I do not have those plans yet.
No, that's fine. And I don't know if we really need the plans. I know that there was a question earlier about some of the trade-offs of trees and parking. And I see that there is a tree in the plan for the Park Road and Warder intersection. And so I just wanted to first of all, confirm, but also remind those who may not have been on earlier calls that as part of the overall holistic approach is we're looking for like offsets, getting trees where we can and offsetting that perhaps lost parking space here and there with a parking space around the corner or somewhere else. So,
yeah, Commissioner, thank you for bringing that point up because we are actually adding in quite a bit of parking in this area, but it's going to be coming on the Park Place and Park Road segments. So we're not seeing that new parking on these plans tonight, but there is going to be quite a bit of parking increase coming. Let's see, there are quite a few other questions. I don't know off the top of my head if this is a designated freight route in Move DC, but it is a collector.
It's not Georgia Ave.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, talking about the lane width again, we will definitely look at that. Some questions about vehicle speeds. I don't have those numbers in front of me right now, unfortunately, but I'm not aware of a tendency for speeding to occur more or less on one-way versus two-way streets. Though it seems intuitive because a lot of the narrow two-way streets you can, because the oncoming traffic, people do tend to go slower. So yeah, actually, if there was a tendency to see faster speeds on one-ways, that would not surprise me, but I'm not aware of that. Okay.
Aaron,
Okay.
I want to keep, I know I'm seeing comments about Park Place and Park, but I know you don't have those on hand. We'll definitely be bringing this up when you do have that.
Yeah. So I am gonna defer those questions on the new parking until I come back in a month or two to discuss those plans, and then we can actually have that in front of us to see what we're looking at, what we're talking about. Okay. And I am noting the many comments here requesting reduction in travel lane to 10 feet, and I'm going to take that up with the design team. So I hear that. Unless there's anything else, I think we should probably switch over to Kenyon.
I would suggest that now because I know there's going to be plenty of comments as well.
Yeah.
And some of our folks have their hands raised too.
Okay, well, let me get that queued up. Okay, so what we're going to take a look at next is a concept plan. So this is a much less developed, less final. This is very much a first draft. I expect this is going to be somewhat contentious. What we're going to be looking at here is extending the protected bike lane that is now on the 400 block of Kenyon, and looking at how a way that it could go to Georgia Avenue. So this is going to come with a number of caveats. So let me get those out of the way first. I don't have precise numbers on parking loss, but it will be fairly significant. The general plan here is to completely eliminate the rush hour travel lane. So in the current condition, I'll back up for a moment. In the current condition on Kenyon, there is resident only parking on the south side. There's a travel lane in the middle, and then there's a rush hour travel lane on the north side. So for most of the day, it's temporary parking. And then during the AM and PM rush hour, the parking goes away and it becomes travel lane. So the best way that we could find to get the bike lane to Georgia Avenue is to eliminate that rush hour travel lane. So no parking at all on the north side. Move the parking on the south side, preserving as much of it as we possibly could, and use that parking to create a parking protected bike lane on the south side of Kenyon, going east and west over to Georgia Avenue. So here's sort of the first half of that. We're starting at Warder, so you can see sort of the existing protected bike lane on the right side of the screen. And then moving west, we have the approach to Georgia Avenue. We have not even begun to think about the Georgia Avenue intersection itself. I know that we're showing you a totally unprotected, bike lane disappearing, dropping off a cliff into nowhere. I hear that. You don't need to say anything about it. We just haven't gotten there yet. We want to show you this first. So that is how, the rough draft for how we're going to do this. One thing I really like about this plan is we preserve the existing ADA parking space here on Kenyon, where it is still fully ADA compliant. It is just, moved over a little bit. We have not done any outreach to the person who holds the permit for that ADA space. We have not talked to them about this yet. I did not want to present them with a hypothetical until I was more sure that this was the design we're going to be proceeding with. So we certainly will speak to that person if this design moves forward, but we have not done that yet. So I believe that is all of my caveats out of the way at this point. So I now welcome your input.
Aaron, actually, can you show the next page? Because it shows it going to George. We only see the.
Yeah.
Oh,
From-
strange. Sorry, I must have hit a button. Where are we?
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Am I showing what folks want to look at?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for advancing that, Aaron.
All right.
And I'm just looking at the comments. Yes, the blue space is the ADA spot.
Yes.
And Aaron, you and I had talked earlier about like future ADA spaces, what would happen with these existing plans to any new requests for ADA spaces?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're going to have to figure that out. I don't think we've added in new ADA spaces to a parking protected bike lane before. You know, there's going to be a first time for everything. I think with a project like this, where it's essentially, you know, striping and you know, we're going to use precast concrete barriers with a design like this. That is stuff that could be modified if there was an approved permit for an ADA parking space here. So I guess the short answer to that is, you know, we haven't done that before, but there's got to be a first time for everything. So we'll figure out how to do that. And we'll figure out how to do that in a way that is fully compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of private parking in the rear for Kenyon, but there's also a lot of seniors on that block that, you know, and some of them don't have parking spaces. So I'm just, these protected bike lanes are pretty permanent. So I'm just thinking about the future as well.
Absolutely.
And Aaron, just a general comment. I know we don't have these in hand as PDFs yet, but as soon as you're able to provide them, please do, and we'll post these to the ANC 1A website.
Yeah, will do.
Aaron, go ahead, Commissioner Wade.
Yes, my concern is the impact that the removal of these parking spaces is going to have on the traffic, rush hour traffic.
So I think what I heard was a concern about the rush hour traffic. This is a very early draft, so in terms of the traffic impact, we think it'll be manageable. I think there probably would be a reduction in speed of traffic here, which is a request that we've heard in places. I unfortunately at this point cannot get more precise than that, but that is certainly something we will carefully analyze if we advance this design to sort of the next draft, and we'll be able to come back to you with more information on that. But I hear that concern, and I'm noting that down.
Well, what you're saying is that the major major east-west artery is going to suddenly diminish in the need for rush hour lanes because you're putting a bike lane there. I was victim to them taking all of the streets and converting them into rush hour lanes through 1A. So it started at Harvard and went straight up to Kenyon. So now you're saying that with an increase in population that this city is experiencing, that there's going to magically be a decrease in the need for rush hour traffic lanes. Because once you remove those lanes, where is all of that traffic going to go? I live on Columbia Road. I see the impact of traffic we've had since the COVID parking restrictions eliminated. So that there's a backup from Park Place all the way to 16th Street every day because the rush hour lane has been eliminated. Now, once government opens back up and most places, offices open back up, we're going to have that influx of traffic heavier than we've had before because we have a greater population. So as you're considering the bike lanes and removing traffic lanes, parking lanes is a bad enough, bitter enough pill to swallow. But now you're telling me that our neighborhoods are going to be one constant backlog of traffic from sun up to sundown, basically all day and all night. Because that's what's going to happen when you take away the rush hour lanes. You guys come up with great plans, but I don't think you always talk to one another. So before you come and talk to us about removing parking lanes and closing down rush hour lanes, you ought to have your traffic impact statement and survey in hand. You're putting the cart before the horse. It makes no sense to me. But I mean, what do I know? I've just seen it happen and reverse and happen and reverse again. And I'm telling you, over 70 years, you've made a mockery of this whole city, especially this ANC 1A complete neighborhood. It just went through and stripped it. Sherman Avenue, New Hampshire Avenue, I can name all of them. And what happened to the community then? And what's going to happen to the community now is going to be choking. You're going to choke the life out of the neighborhood with your plans. So think carefully about the impact it's going to have on rush hour traffic, because it's not going to go away because you put a bike lane in. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll look very closely at that. Congestion is certainly a concern. It is something that we will take into account when developing this plan further. And I'm sorry that I can't speak more to it at this time. But I hear you, and I've made a note of that.
Aaron, an
Okay.
earlier comment, I know we had discussed this earlier, but would you describe and try to alleviate some of the issues around drop-offs, pickups, folks dropping off groceries, getting deliveries?
Yeah, the pickup drop-off issue is definitely tricky. And we know that there's an increased amount of people getting, Amazon deliveries, grocery deliveries, things of that nature. That's something that we got to think creatively about. In terms of adding designated places for pickup and drop off on Kenyon, that is certainly something we could do. It might come at the expense of resident parking, just because of the spatial constraints of the street. I'm a little, personally, I feel like when we do add in those designated pickup and drop off locations, they tend to get ignored, and the FedEx guy is just going to pull up where he's going to pull up and put on his hazards. I think we've all seen that happen. So in terms of trying to think creatively for solutions about that, that is very much part of the conversation here. So that is definitely something that I'm going to have to come back to you with some thoughts on later, because I do think that is a challenge. There really isn't anything in this plan I'm showing you now addressing that. So that is something we're going to come back with in the future.
Okay. And I know Commissioner Ray just messaged me too. I know we've had a few folks holding tight on the line. So Brian, I am promoting you right now. If you're able to unmute.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Okay, as I was stating earlier, there's too many elderly and handicapped people who are affected by this, that live in this block. There's 3 in my house alone, 2 elderly people and 1 handicapped. And it's a pain to just offload groceries into the house from up the street or around the corner when I used to have parking right in front of my house. Nobody ever asked us for any of this, or if we were cool with it. You guys just decided to do this, and we pay taxes. I don't think a lot of forethought went into this. The sheer volume of traffic pre-COVID made this highly unlikely. And if it's ever to return to normal, rush hour is going to last till 9:30, 10 p.m. This intersection has a high volume of fatal accidents. And it's just going to get worse when you narrow the traffic, when you narrow the lane. It's going to get a lot worse. This is the DMV. You think people are really going to slow down? Please tell me you're not that naive. And isn't this supposed to be a snow emergency route? And since you're going to curtail parking on several streets, how do you propose the neighbors find parking during street cleaning without having to compete with one another? And automobile owners pay for the street maintenance. Bicyclists don't. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Brian. Aaron, do you want to address any of the points made? And I know something I'm seeing in chat as well. Can you also address how these plans would affect car speeds? Because we do know that speeding is also a concern, pedestrians being struck and killed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for your comment. In terms of the speed issue, that is something we take very seriously. Any project that we do needs to have a net safety gain. We do not build new projects that are not going to improve the safety of an area, or at least we certainly don't do so intentionally. So our intent here is certainly to increase the safety. We do find that with lane reduction and lane narrowing, it does decrease speeds, and it does have a positive safety impact. So that is certainly the outcome that we expect to see here if we move this project forward. So I hope that addresses the point.
Well, I don't think that's going to address the issue of the speed. What we fought for in this ANC commission for years and had for years successfully implemented was that at each light from Park Place to Water, you stopped. At Georgia, you had to stop. At Sherman, you had to stop. That allowed, at each block, you could cross 11 from Sherman up to 13th Street, but each block would allow people who lived in the neighborhood opportunity to disembark from their automobiles, to pull over and park. When you change that cross-town modality to make the lights synchronize straight up from Park Place and Kenyon, or Park Place and Michigan Avenue, that whole conclave up there, the moment you did that and you just sped the traffic straight through the neighborhood, now the people who live on the block have no opportunity to pull over and park, to stop and let people out of their vehicles and back into their vehicles. All for the expediency of moving people, automobiles and bicycles through a neighborhood, a densely populated neighborhood. So if you want to slow down the traffic, you have to desynchronize the lights. It worked, it protected us, especially when we had Bruce Monroe at the top of the hill. I mean, it was imperative that the traffic had to stop at those corners for the safety of the children. Other than that, they speed across to make the yellow light in all directions. It was just it was hazardous. Now it's going to become hazardous again. So taking away the express lanes, taking away residential parking, making it difficult for people who do live in the neighborhood to enter and exit their homes, to use the streets to park, to unload and load people. let me tell you, I don't see a good plan in this plan. Personally, I don't. From my decades of experience working with the city and DDOT, I don't see this as a workable solution that will be most appealing to the people who live here. It'll be great for people who's zipping through our neighborhoods. Just fabulous. But when they're gone, and we have to go 2 and 3 blocks to try to find somewhere to park our cars, when we have children that we have to struggle with in inclement weather to get them to the house from a parking space that is distant, when you have elderly people such as myself who must use a cane for mobility, who have to park 2 blocks away because there's no parking in my neighborhood because spaces are being taken away for bikes and for express and for parking lanes. Let me tell you, it is not a good feeling. And someone has got to become humane about the impact this is having on the thousands of people. I represent 2,200 people in my single member district. We're all impacted by every decision DDOT makes without including them. Has there ever been a survey done door to door? I mean, you put door knockers on everything else. What is the people's understanding? Most people don't go on our websites. Most people don't read our newsletters. You guys certainly send things out when you want the public to know, but you don't send out things about these major changes to the neighborhood roads. I noticed that. So I'm speaking on behalf of the people who have no voice. And I hope my voice is loud enough so that at least people in the community understand that their options are to scream loudly against these plans that does not consider the health, safety, and welfare of the residents. Make us more susceptible to crime if we got to walk long distances with packages. We're vulnerable, especially the elderly. So just think of all of that, and I'm not through, but that's all I have on that right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Lobo. I know we have a number of folks who have their hands raised, and I don't want to miss out, but I know you did raise outreach. Commissioner Brown, Ray, or Bass, do you want to raise how you've reached out to the community and what you plan on doing next?
Yeah, Zach, I believe we talked about posting these design concepts on ANC 1A's website. And we'll continue to have collect public comments through this particular committee and engage community members through our newsletters and also post on social media. We try to make it as public as possible. And wherever we have the capacity, we try to also flyer the blocks and let folks know about the meetings, but we always encourage folks to come to these meetings, particularly when DDOT is present and is able to walk us through these concepts.
Yeah, and I can, well, and I'd say I can add to that, since the first time I got an inkling of some of these concepts was last Friday, which wasn't much of a turnaround. I did post something to our local listserv, but I do plan to get this in paper to all the constituents door to door to let them know, show them some of the plans, let them know who to reach out to raise a public comment, and where they can go to see the full plan set. And we will probably do something similar when we're further along with Park Place and all the other parts of the whole.
Yeah, and I'll just also share that, unfortunately, NOIs don't come to members' inboxes, and DDOT does not provide that additional outreach. So we can work through this commission to once it gets posted to flyer doors on the folks that are immediately impacted. And I think the mayor unfortunately reduced the time for comments. We're fortunate for this NOI that we talked about today to have 60 days, but I think she reduced it to 30 days. So just be mindful of that when you are seeing these public notices. We'll also make sure to share public notices once they become active and finalized. And for those that aren't able to see the design concepts on the website, we usually include on our flyers that if you would like for us to mail you our, print out these design concepts and put them on your door, we're also happy to do that as well.
And just to, oh, sorry, Commissioner Wright, go ahead.
Let me just let me say, because we did ask what did we do? I personally walked the alleys of these blocks because I knew this was going to be coming in the near future, and I've mapped every single off-street parking space. And the one thing about this stretch of Kenyon is that every house is pretty much a 1 or 2 unit home. Most of them are 1, and they have 2 and in some cases 3 parking spaces behind their houses. So this particular stretch is well served by off-street parking. So I would also point out to everyone listening that Move DC has been going on for months, if not years. Kenyon Street has always been a bike priority lane in that plan. So this is not new. They've been talking about this for a very long time. So, this is something that I know a lot of people want to see move forward. It's time for it to start to move forward. And if we don't start to have the conversation, it's never going to move forward. So happy to help.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Wright. The only thing I would add to that also is that I took this to the public meeting is basically as soon as I got it. This was as soon as I could get it out in front of folks. So I just want to be very clear that what we're looking at right now in Kenyon, there's no NOI coming for this anytime soon. This is not a project that's going to happen this year or probably even next year. You are seeing this as early as I could possibly get it in front of the public. So this is DDOT trying to get this information out to the public as fast as we possibly can, and to as wide an audience as we possibly can. So I understand that this is the first time folks are seeing this, but it had to be the first time at some point. So this is it. This is the first time most people have seen this. This is very new stuff.
Thank you.
And Aaron, I know that you had on the 400 block of Kenyon Street a pop-up when the first proposed concept. I think folks were able to get a visual of what that looks like, kind of as a test. So would that also happen on the 500 block of Kenyon?
That's a neat idea. I will have to talk to some folks about that. I would really like to do that. I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and I think before DDOT did a lot of flyering to make sure that the residents knew who lived particularly on that block, and I would definitely recommend that you do the same for this block.
We'll definitely do that, yeah.
Okay, I wanted to raise, because I know we have a lot of hands raised, so we're going to start with Eric. You should be allowed to speak, and then Tatiana, and then we will go down the line from there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Dan Hayes, who's a resident at 1353 Oak Street. He's asked me to read a statement. I will do that. I'm an ANC 1A04 resident since 1999, a bicycle rider in the DC region since 1984. I ride for both recreations, means of transportation, commuting between Columbia Heights and the University of Maryland, College Park. I appreciate and use the many bike amenities which DC DDOT in collaboration with other local and regional entities has designed and installed over the years, making bicycle travel much safer and creating an ever more inclusive bicycle network for our residents and visitors. As some of the commissioners will remember, I recently appeared at the 14 April and 12 May meetings and informed the commission and area members of the Bike Work Day, bike participation. Thank you for previous year's support. This year's activity last Friday was highly successful with 128 attendees at Columbia Heights Plaza. There were another 95 events regionally equally well attended. Prior and hopefully subsequent COVID, I commute 3 to 4 days per week by bicycle during daylight savings time. My usual route is primarily via District of Maryland streets, traveling through areas proposed at this meeting for bicycle upgrades, delineated bicycle lanes, alert vehicular traffic to bicyclist presence, in addition to providing a modicum of safety to law-abiding cyclists. Separated lanes as along Irving Street, north of Washington Hospital Center, and the Pennsylvania Avenue or 15th Street permit more safety for bicyclists through the installation of barriers between often fast-moving vehicular and slow-moving bicycle traffic and specialized signals at intersections, less stress and fear generated by competition with motorized vehicles makes for a more comfortable bicycle ride. Fear is one facet that prevents many novice riders from using bicycles as a means of transportation. Although parking of vehicles provides some value to adjacent residents, if we are to successfully address climate change problems and encourage more use of non-polluting means of transportation, making our statement safer for all citizens is a good step. I encourage the adoption of these measures proposed at this meeting by DDOT. I will be happy to submit this statement in more detail in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And by proxy, Dan. Tatiana, I am going to raise you right now. You should be good.
Thank you. First, I want to thank Aaron for doing this. I do appreciate you coming out and actually talking to the residents about the plans in this area. I'm a civil engineer. I've done this before with this audience. I know how difficult it can be to have concept plans and present them with opposition. Having said that, I'm a new resident to this area. I actually live on the block that's currently on the screen now that proposes this double cycle track. And I usually follow, just because of my job, I follow DDOT's plans around the city. I adamantly oppose this plan, and the purpose of, well, first of all, I was really surprised that DDOT is proposing a double lane bicycle track in a residential area that would impact parking. That was surprising to me. I usually in the district see those in areas like K Street and Georgetown, or areas that don't necessarily have this many residents and where you wouldn't lose this many residential parking. And I do understand that this is conceptual. And for Commissioner Ray, Michael Ray, I appreciate you doing the survey with the alleys of this block. But as a resident, I can tell you I don't have parking in my the back of my house. I also know several of my neighbors and myself that spent money improving our backyard to have livable space during the pandemic, that have kids and pets that use the backyard. So saying that we have the option to replace the street parking is incorrect. This area specifically, this block being so close to Georgia Avenue, it is consistently full. And I'm not saying it's full with all sorts of cars, it's full with zone 1 parking. So the residents do use this parking, and this proposed plan would impact me and my neighbors significantly. I agree with the other commissioner with her concerns regarding the traffic in this area. Yes, reducing the lane would ultimately slow down cars. And I know there's a lot of people on the chat that are pro this plan because they probably don't live on the street. And again, I am pro bicycle lanes. I want to repeat that. I am. I think we can come up with a better plan that would not have such an impact on this block, for residents on this block. However, it will slow down traffic, but it's not going to reduce the capacity, right? So it ultimately is going to increase the queues along Kenyon. So what I believe was Brian said earlier, that the expectation is that the traffic ultimately is going to last longer. I believe that's true. So on your end, Aaron, I think it's good for you to hear these early comments. I also would appreciate to understand if DDOT's going to have a public meeting regarding this Move DC plan, because other than having these comments in an ANC meeting, I'd like to have a specific DDOT public meeting where other DDOT representatives hears the concerns of the residents.
Tatiana, thank you. I do want to jump in that, and Aaron, please fill in, but this is part of the Crosstown multimodal project that started long before I was a ANC commissioner. So if you want to elaborate on that, please do.
Sure, yeah, so the quick version is that Move DC is the district, the whole citywide sort of master transportation plan, of which there's been, multiple iterations, and recently, it's been going through a plan update process. I'm not sure if there's any public meetings scheduled for the future, but there have been a number of them recently. The most recent one was in February. But if there is upcoming public meetings on that, I will do my best to get that information out there. So in the draft of Move DC published in 2010, this area was identified for additional study, a closer look. And so that gave rise to the Crosstown Multimodal Study, which was completed in 2016. So that's where these specific projects came out of through public engagement, a number of public meetings for the Crosstown Multimodal Study. So, as Commissioner Ray said, plans for this corridor have been in the works for many, many years now, over 10 years. And, I want to fully acknowledge that it is very challenging to communicate these to the public, to disseminate this information widely, especially because the timelines that we deal with for these projects are extremely long. People move in, people move out. We fully understand that, and that's why we're so grateful to have partners, in the advisory neighborhood commissions who really help us immensely with these things. We could not engage with the public in this manner without the ANCs. So I just want to take a moment to voice some appreciation for the commissioners who are putting in a huge amount of time and effort into this and many other things going on in the neighborhood. So hopefully that's a good quick primer on sort of how we got to where we are today.
Oh, I understand these plans take time, and it's been in the works for a really long time, and it's a process. I get that. My point in this is not that you guys haven't done your homework and that this hasn't been something that was in the works prior to me moving to the neighborhood. I get that. My concern is that it has such a significant impact on residents along Kenyon that needs to be considered regardless of the overall Move DC plan that's been in the works for over a decade.
Absolutely, I hear you.
I'd like to add also that the population has significantly changed and increased in the past 11 years. So that even the data from 2016 is 5 years old. Look at the population increase from that time to now. Look at the conversions of single-family homes to multiple family units that impacts this community and the population. It is all about the most recent statistics that you guys need to look at. I'm not trying to overturn the apple cart. These are the concerns I had in 2010. They're the concerns I had in 2016. They're the concerns I had in 19, 20, 21. I have not changed my concerns, and you guys have not changed your position to forge ahead. Concerns be darned. So I'm going to continue to express these concerns, and I want to make the public as aware as I can that you're operating from your last current data was 2016, and I would like for you to ask one of your co-agencies, what has the population shift been in this neighborhood and throughout the city in the past 6 years, and see if you could overlay that population data onto your new transportation modality plans and see what kind of sense it would actually make in real time today. And keeping in mind that this neighborhood is consistently growing, and by the time you implement it, you can expect another 5 or 6% increase in population. So just trying to keep it real and keep you guys focused as you go through with beautiful plans. They're so cute. I love them. You do such great work with your plans, but they're not practical.
Aaron, if you'd like to address anything Commissioner Love-Wade raised, and then I do want to get to some hands that, as we're going on 9 p.m., from folks that have not had a chance to speak yet.
in terms of Commissioner Lovelight's comments, I appreciate those comments. In terms of the population growth, one thing that I would say to that is that population has increased in the district, although actually I think in the recent census, our population decreased slightly, which was a surprise to everyone. But the road network is the same. We've got the same streets, regardless of, sort of the number of people that we're adding in. And we need to create alternate ways for people to move around. We simply don't have the physical space to accommodate a car for every resident and a parking space for every resident. It's just geometry. So either we create alternatives, bikes, buses, other ways to metro, ways to move large groups of people around, or we turn everything into a street and a parking lot, and that's not a good solution either. So there's trade-offs because every inch of public space is in use, and we're aware of that, but we do take all that very seriously. So I think there's other folks we haven't heard from yet. Let's try and get to everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to Tim, you raise, and then we're going to have Joel, Jennifer, and Sarah.
Thank you. Tim Hampton, 1A resident. I just want to say that my family and my kids all bike every day. People in my house bike. We've never used a public parking spot on the street, and we're desperate for protected facilities. All of us have been involved in traffic collisions. We've been hit by cars. I've got the scars on my body, and my spouse is never going to be 100% recovered from what happened to her, and even after being in the hospital and stuff. And we're desperate every day to have protected facilities. And there's really right now 99.99% of the public space is used for moving vehicles and parking vehicles. And if we can take just 0.1% of that public space in DC and make some protected bike lanes so that we have a safe way to go around, it would mean the world to us, our bodies and our health and our peace of mind. And so I hope this lane can not just be this block, but can be an east-west connection that actually becomes part of a network that gets us safely to places, and that we can extend it further. Thank you very much for working on this.
Thank you, Tim. I'm going to jump to, sorry, I lost my list. Joel, you are raised. Joel Heller, and then we're going to have Jennifer Cooper.
Hi, thank you. And thanks to everyone for engaging in this conversation. I also want to express my support for the crosstown bike lane, the protected lanes. I'm a relatively novice biker, and I'm doing more biking now that we're coming out of the 14 months of being cooped up inside and trying to find new ways to be outside and exercise. And these kind of protected bike lanes are really what I feel I need to feel comfortable and safe riding my bike around the city. And I say this also as a car owner who does park my car on the street and rely on street parking. That doesn't stop me from supporting this effort. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Joel. I'm going to bring up Jennifer Cooper right now, and then we'll go to Mark Benjamin and Sarah Sorsher.
Hi, I'll keep it short. I just want to express how I understand the loss of parking is a serious consideration, especially for people who are elderly or who have disabilities. Nonetheless, this is a matter of convenience, whereas many of us on the call have been physically hit by cars and seriously injured. So I just want people to keep things in perspective of the difference between a convenience, especially for people who are not elderly or disabled, versus those of us who have been actually hurt. And the solution is not going to be for people to continue to have private vehicles, but there needs to be increased, maybe shorter, smaller buses for people with disabilities and who are elderly to make it more accessible. We just cannot continue. The sheer number of people who have been hit and killed by cars as pedestrians and cycles is completely out of hand. So I hope that everyone remembers that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm jumping now to Sarah. Oh, you may have already
Hi,
spoken.
no, I'm here.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I had something to say. I don't identify as a cyclist, and I didn't ride bike in DC for many years. I do have a bike now, and the reason I didn't ride for many years was because I had a college friend who died while she was in an unprotected bike lane with her helmet on in DC in like 06, 08, and she was like probably the sweetest kid I ever met, and so it was hard for me to like get on a bike in the city, and the work that you all are doing to make the bike lanes more protected has meant a lot to me. I know that Kenyon is really important for getting across the city, and you know, all the protections we're putting in place in other parts of the city don't make sense if we leave these spots open, and there's not really a better place for the city to put a crosstown bike lane. So I know that you're grappling with a tough situation, and any place you put it, you're probably going to piss some people off. I actually live in Parkview. I live on Otis, and I'd love for you to put it on my street, but it's, you know, you're welcome to it. I have a car. It's huge. We have a backyard that we renovated to make a more livable space, but we knew that we couldn't rely on street parking forever. This is like a free public resource that we're not entitled to. So we made sure that we put in some stones back there so that we can park our car if we ever lose parking on the street. And I think people on Kenyon ought to consider that. So I want to encourage DDOT to move forward with this project. I know you get some opposition, but there's lots of people who support it. And I want to encourage the neighbors who, you know, have to deal with the inconvenience to just, you know, show some sympathy and consideration for each other, and you know, recognize that keeping each other safe sometimes means having to make some sacrifices. Thank you.
Thank you for being willing to share that, Sarah. And I'm looking at the list of folks. I know, Mark, you have not had a chance to speak yet tonight. Aaron, I want to be respectful of your time because you are, you know, our guest here. I'm not sure how late you're willing to stick around, but.
Oh, I'm the only one getting paid to be here, so keep it going.
Okay, Mark.
Awesome, thanks so much. Thanks y'all for the presentation. I'll keep my comment short. I'm just speaking in favor of the bike lane. I live at the corner of Vermont and Georgia, and I've been using the crosstown cycle track on Irving a ton to get over to the MBT, and the feeling of it, that cycle track is awesome. It's super wonderful. But when biking back over to Parkview, that feeling when you have to leave the protected bike lane and merge onto Kenyon is just pretty awful. And that section just always feels really dangerous. So I know it just gets us to Georgia, and hopefully we can extend it further in the future, but this will be just incredibly valuable. And I think keep people a lot safer when using that cycle track on Irving to get back into the Parkview Columbia Heights area. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mark. Zach, or Commissioner Gold. Raising you right now.
I'm just Zach here in this venue, Commissioner.
Sorry.
That's okay. First of all, thank you, Commissioner, for hosting this. I'm really glad to see DDOT putting forward this plan to continue the crosstown cycle track westward, if only for one block. One of the tragedies of our ward, and I represent an SMD on the other side of 16th Street. One of the tragedies is that despite identified future facilities on Florida, Columbia, Harvard, Irving, and Park Road, there isn't a single safe bike route between the west and east sides of Ward 1. Aaron, thank you for going through that history of how this plan started almost a decade ago. And despite the recommendation in 2016 to continue a cycle track on Kenyon from all the way to 14th Street, DDOT at the time implemented a facility that ends very abruptly at Warder. And they did so because DDOT didn't want to have these difficult conversations. So Aaron, I really appreciate you being here for as long as it takes to have this conversation, and to hear from the community, both pro and not pro. You're of course welcome to speak to ANC 1C anytime about issues in our neighborhood. But having this conversation is important because there needs to be a protected and connected network. Right now, the network is not connected. And that's not how you build a network. It's like planning Georgia Avenue from Florida to the Maryland border and only paving it as far north as New Hampshire. I strongly encourage ANC 1A to support the continuation of a connected bike network and request that Aaron, you and DDOT move this concept forward promptly. And frankly, probably not next year, as you said, is not prompt. And that DDOT continue to work on how neighbors can get east and west on Kenyon all the way to 16th Street and on Columbia and Harvard and others. Thank you very much for your time. I'd love to be able to continue to travel or to start to travel safely between Adams Morgan, Mount Pleasant, and Columbia Heights. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gold. Gordon, I know you just typed in if you had anything else you wanted to share beyond what you already did. Everyone, just so we make it clear, also everything that's been typed in the chat we'll be downloading. I'll be sending around our commission as well as sending to Aaron for any follow-up as well.
Sorry, I was just about to lower my hand. I guess I'll just add that I really appreciate DDOT, and I want to strongly support this segment of Kenyon. The way to improve our communities, I think, is to follow these planning processes. And so I think a lot of our responsibility today is to respect the community input that is encoded in many dozens of PDF pages from Move DC in 2014 and the Crosstown study. And I really strongly believe that the public space should follow the public interest. And that's why I support beginner-friendly, family-friendly bike facilities here. And then, Aaron, I'm sorry that I was so hard on you, but I really think that we can improve that mixing bowl on 5th and Water. But thanks for presenting.
Thank you. Hands raised. Brian, did you have a follow-up comment? And then it looks like we're finished after this with resident comments. Anything from Brian? Okay. So those are all the resident comments. Aaron, would you quickly, oh wait, Commissioner Ray, did you have a comment? And then Aaron, if you want to wrap up on next steps.
No, I simply put that in there because I know we're saving the chat and I wanted to make sure that it got written down somewhere. So please finish up. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate hearing from everybody. I know this is a difficult conversation to have, but I really appreciate the thought and the time that everyone's put into this. So I just want to say, first and foremost, that this is not the end. This is the beginning, though I am going to stop sharing my screen, so stop looking at that. Yeah, this is the beginning of working through these issues together. Next steps, actually, I'm going to come back to you hopefully next month or the month after, and we're going to discuss Park Road and Park Place, where we're going to have 65% plans, so similar to what we saw in Warder. So look forward to that. In terms of Kenyon, we are very much at the beginning of things. I am going to have to come back to you with what our trajectory is for, you know, if and how we move that forward, because it is not clear to me at this point how that's going to happen. But there will be more on that to come. So sorry to not give you a more clear picture on the Kenyon piece, but we've got to have some internal conversations about the feedback we've received this evening. But once again, I encourage everybody to reach out to your, to your commissioners, reach out to your council members, reach out to DDOT, to our community engagement team here at DDOT. We do need to hear from you so that we can, do the best we can. And I think that's all I got.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Aaron. We really do. I know you hear it from both sides, and from our commission as well, but you have been very communicative throughout this entire process. You've been very accessible, and you have been, I know you made the comment, there's got to be a first time to share these. So thank you for bringing that as soon as you have it, and even telling us about some of the Park Place, before you even have the plans in hand. So, we're looking forward to you sharing those as soon as you have them as well.
Well, I'm going to take off, but I will talk to you all soon.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you. Folks, we do have we have at least two more agenda topics. So Commissioner Love Wade, I wasn't sure if you wanted to bring up apologies, I was not familiar with this, the programmatic agreement with the National Historic Preservation Act and Federal Highway Aid.
They sent it to me, and I was just wondering, if that 16th Street left turn on Park Road was involved, had any, I understand that there was something from the HPDR, whatever they are, that caused VDOT to rethink that left turn on Park Road from 16th Street. And I was wondering if that Section 106A had anything to do with it.
I do not know, honestly. I when you forwarded that was the first time I'd ever seen this. Just because I know this is federal, I'm wondering if these are two separate issues. HPRB is not involved in this one, but I'm more than happy to take a closer look. I do want to, related to this, I do want to share, I know Commissioner Miller wasn't able to join us tonight, but we had a meeting with, an informal meeting with David Meny from Councilmember Nadeau's office, as well as staff and the legal team from the Archdiocese of DC and Sacred Heart to discuss that intersection. And something we realized that DDOT had never brought up was, this whole solution could be, or the solution in front of us that was never raised was if we did not start the reversible lanes at Irving Street, rather further up, even a block or two, that there would be room for the protected left-hand turn. So we're so I know Commissioner Miller submitted her letter that we approved her to submit last month, and I believe ANC 1D was also sending a letter to DDOT. So hopefully we get a response to see if they would even consider this as an option, because it wasn't discussed earlier at all.
Hope springs eternal.
I know.
I'm like, wait a minute, let me find my surprise face here.
Yeah, sorry. It just took a bunch of laymen to point that out.
So
as
that's
a
what that
potential.
was about, Zach. So it's not relevant.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take a closer look, but I'm just glancing through. I'm thinking it might be separate. So thank you. And then obviously the mayor's budget is getting dropped May 27th, so this Thursday. So I'll be keeping a close eye for the DDOT budget. The hearing is scheduled for June 10th, which, I will be cranking through, keeping an eye out for folks who are already doing the work of reviewing it line by line. But if there are commissioners or folks still on the call that are interested in reviewing, I know it's a time-consuming process. In the past, we had really advocated for an increase in some of the budget regarding community outreach. And, I think we're sort of in a different boat looking at some of the federal money that's coming in, but hopefully we could do something similar.
Zach,
Commissioner Ray.
I did want to point out that the mayor did early release a statement on she wants to continue the circulator to be fare free. And I know this commission in the past has supported that wholeheartedly, and unfortunately the council overturned her the last go around. So it might not be a bad idea to have a preemptive resolution of support of the circulator being fare free. We need to normalize the idea that people can ride buses without having to pay additional monies. It is not necessarily cost effective for a family to travel on a bus in the city.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Wonderful. I'll work with each of you drafting a letter.
We dust off the one we had before?
Yes.
We also could just copy what we had before, even though I do know that we spent time in that resolution discussing expansion for Ward 7, which I think is also moving forward. But yeah, we can just copy what we had.
Or at least reference it to say we thought about this before, and thank you for considering.
Absolutely, thank you. I know for the committee moving forward, I know we missed a Vision Zero hearing where we could have had testimony. I would love to have volunteer or commissioners who might be willing to just track legislation as it's moving through, because that I hate missing out on an opportunity for us to, I'm seeing Gordon's comment, nothing novel was shared at the hearing. I know we do hate missing opportunity to share, the commission's voice though. So feel free always to reach out. I know I posted the commissioner's contact information earlier. Please just go to our website if you had comments that you did not have a chance to share tonight and want to. And I know we'll be seeing Aaron again probably next month. So I guess with that, were there any other comments folks wanted to make? No? I know it's a 9/11 already, so thank you all for
it's a school night.
It is a school night, but I do thank you all for taking the time tonight in sharing. And like I said before, regardless of the issues that we have had with DDOT communication, Aaron has at least been very accessible, and I really do appreciate that. And yeah, Gordon, we will share the slides from tonight. As soon as we get the PDFs, we'll post it on the Transportation Committee website, because I don't have access to them yet. So, well, I will end the meeting, but thank you all. And commissioners, I will see you at Committee of the Whole.
Good night, everyone.
Next month.
Good night.
Bye-bye.